what those, and welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching Nomadland. Nomadland's the story about a woman who loses everything and chooses to live a nomadic lifestyle of solitude on the road, traveling across the West. She crosses paths with a plethora of other people who've had similar bumpy roads, and they're all just kind of going with the wind. Don't do it, don't do it, don't. She lives in a van down by the river! I'll be honest, I was a little bummed that this movie was not a documentary. I thought this because the first time that I watched the trailer, I noted the production value being... I don't want to say bad because it certainly was not that. I'll call it raw. This movie is not as polished technically as other movies nowadays, especially those that are getting such critical acclaims as this one is. So I don't know, I guess in my head, my mind just kind of went to documentary as an explanation for that. Or maybe it was just me wishful thinking that I would see real, authentic, interesting people, not fictional, interesting people. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know that people like this are out there, people of the road, people of the world, but I don't know, I guess I was just kind of hoping that I would hear real life stories from real life people of this sort versus fictional ones. I am absolutely fascinated by people like this. They are so interesting, much more interesting than, let's be real, me, you, or all the people that are around us. Yeah, you got an office job. Yeah, you got a couple kids, a 401k, you bought a house, but honestly, who really cares? Who's gonna read that book? I'm guilty of this too, so don't get the impression that I'm sitting on my ivory tower of interesting. I'm boring as as well. But people like this, they are not living the traditional American dream. They are traveling, they are on the road, they are seeing the world in a new lens that's so alien to people like me or you. They're really seeing the world. They're not just staying at some Airbnb or hotel somewhere. They're really in the thick of these cultures, and then they do what they need to do, then they pack up and move to the next place. If you ever come across a person even remotely in this realm, you can guarantee a couple things. One, they're going to have some very interesting stories, and two, not all those stories are going to be comedies. Documentary or not, that's what I was anticipating to get from this movie. I was so ready to strap in and get into the mind of a truly wandering soul with awesome tales to tell. Let's start the pros with the production value because I do not want it to get misconstrued that I am knocking it. I absolutely love this approach for this movie. It felt so real, so raw, so authentic. It had some rough lighting, shaky handheld camera work, bad sound design. It honestly felt like someone was just walking around filming these real life people, hence why I thought that it might be a doc. I absolutely love this approach for the movie because it made these characters feel so much more real, so much more feasible because the camera image that we're seeing doesn't feel like a product of Hollywood. Even something as simple as our protagonist emptying out a storage unit, walking back and forth from the unit to her van. The camera's handheld, following her step for step, walking back and forth in one unedited, uninterrupted, kind of long, awkward, continuous take. It felt like that's what it is, not manufactured. It's her walking back and forth a whole bunch. Even a single edit would have taken away so much authenticity from that sequence. From start to finish, this movie just soaks in its rawness, and it's the perfect movie and plot to do this in. A story about people on the road, minimalists that have little to nothing to their name, should be captured by minimalists with little to no production value. I don't know, that just only feels right to me. This authentic, real approach did awesome things for the nature shots too, which there are many of. Like a sunset in the desert, the raw approach this movie has with the camera made these beautiful things feel that much more beautiful. Have you probably seen more visually stunning sunset in the desert shots in other movies? Yes, probably, but you also kind of know in your head that those things are kind of fabrications. You know that they did something special to make that seem the way that it is. Or in some cases like Jungle Book or Mulan, you know that it's 100% every single square inch of the frame is going to be manufactured. It's not real. But with the raw approach that this movie has across the board, when you see a beautiful sunset in this movie, in your head, you're like, that was a damn beautiful sunset. They did nothing to it. That just happened in the world that we all live in. It's like the real life Hollywood version of the hashtag no filter. My dad, for instance, is not a camera whiz like myself, but he loves to go traveling to national parks and go see all these beautiful places. So when he goes out and shows me pictures that he took of these beautiful places with his potato camera, I actually look at it like, damn, that's actually beautiful. Versus if I went there with my camera, a much nicer camera, took a photo and then edited the piss out of it, yeah, my product might be the more visually stunning and more impressive one, but there's just something about the raw approach that you're like, you know, you feel like your mind's not getting tricked. In a strange way, his photos are more beautiful than mine. But don't tell him that. That'll get to his head. But yes, the nature shots in this film, very beautiful. It hits especially close to home for me because a lot of it takes place in South Dakota. It's a state that my family has been to many times throughout my life, and I just absolutely love it. I love the desert. But never have I ever seen it or heard it paired with a soundtrack like this. This film had a beautiful soundtrack, quite possibly my favorite of the year so far. It had some breathtaking keys, so the incorporation of some beautiful strings. All of it was so calm, so beautiful, the kind of stuff that you fall asleep to and have the most wondrous dreams. The combination of these raw visuals, the most tranquil soundtrack, it was just a match made in heaven. Add in some very interesting, very feasible characters. I'm still a little leery and suspect about the fact that this wasn't a doc. I gotta double check. All of this combined for a real experience that you put your guard down to really just soak it all in. No tricks here, no camera magic, no manipulation. This is just raw human emotion. As far as cons go, I didn't really like the scene structure of this film. Throughout the entire duration of the movie, it felt like it was made up of mini scenes versus fully fleshed out ones. Oftentimes it made it difficult to feel really invested in each scenario. It would bring you in, introduce you to the scenario, hook you in, and then it would just kind of move on to the next thing. It kind of felt like someone was just mashing the next scene button on a DVD remote. It was really sporadic and made the relationship construction of the characters very weak. She'd start one mini scene off being introduced to a new character, then all of a sudden 3 mini scenes later, they're all of a sudden best friends. It almost felt like I was reading a Spark Notes version of this story, like I was just kind of getting the cliff notes just to get by, and I was constantly playing keep up mentally. I also found our protagonist very frustrating. Throughout most of the film, her mindset, her attitude, her actions, all of them were things that I just found very difficult to root for and sympathize with. I 100% that was by design, but it doesn't make it any easier and more enjoyable for a viewing experience. It's like watching Adam Sandler's character in Uncut Gems. Yes, he does a great job, and yes, it's interesting, but at the same time, he just perpetually makes bad decision after bad decision, and it's like, it's impossible to really connect with that person because they're just doing all the things that you as a viewer would never do. Now, originally in my notes for the film, I wrote unlikable protagonist, not frustrating, unlikable, because genuinely throughout most of the movie, that's how I felt about her. But towards the end of the movie, I started to come around with her. I started to understand her more. I started to get inside her head more instead of watching her ill-advised actions from the outside of it. Which does lead me right into my conclusion about the film. All in all, I'd be lying if I said that I enjoyed every single second of this movie. There were many times I started to get pessimistic, impatient, kind of started to slip toward the negative side of things. But this is a movie that really sinks its teeth into you towards the end and after you finish watching. It's a film that really makes you think. It makes you reflect on your life, the way you're living, the way that other people around you are living, how all of our paths are different and they're all entangled and intertwined as we all push forward through this wild ride of life and into the vast unknown. I'm going to give Nomadland a B+. But that's just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to this channel to stay up to date with new reviews coming real soon. Stay safe, thanks for checking in.